Okay. Hi, Alicia. How are you?
I'm great, Douglas. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for coming on. Nice to have you with us. So, as we were talking about before we got on, you are currently in Scotland. Is that right?
I am in Edinburgh, Scotland, where it is a dark, cold evening.
What are you doing there?
I have lived in the UK for almost 15 years. This month will be 15 years. Most of that time was in London. And as part of my what if year, one of the big changes that came out of it was moving to Scotland. So I'm here because I love it. It's beautiful. And I think after the pandemic, we sort of realized that we could work from anywhere. And so, where would we want to work from? We being my husband and I. And we've just always loved Scotland. So, Edinburgh is an amazing city. I try not to tell too many people because I don't want everybody to move here.
Well, I don't blame you. But you're American originally, right? Or still am? Still are.
Yeah, yeah. From
Okay.
Miami, Florida, born and raised.
Okay. It's funny about Scotland because there's a place that my wife actually loves and wants to go. And she said, "Oh, let's go retire there." The Inner Hebrides.
Yeah,
Have you been there?
I have. I actually did one of my internships on the Isle of Skye, and I lived there for a while. I spent a lot of time there. So I think she's got a really good plan ahead of you.
Is that a good place to retire?
I mean, let me tell you that it rains on average 270 days of the year in the
Oh,
Inner Hebrides.
okay.
So just keep that in mind. I guess it depends on how you feel about rain.
Well, I don't mind rain, but I don't know. When you're retired, you want to be out doing something. So, yeah, I
I
don't
think the
know.
Scottish attitude is that you're just out doing something no matter the weather. If you only waited for the good days, you would never leave your
You'd
house.
never leave the house. Okay. Reading through your bio, it sounds like you and I might have similar histories, but I'm going to reserve that comment until I hear more of the story. So it sounds like you had a major midlife crisis and just totally changed everything about your life. Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate. Is that your story too?
It is absolutely my story. At 43 years old, I changed everything. Absolutely everything. So, why don't you just tell a little bit about yours? So, your book is called My What If Year. Is this sort of a chronicle about what happened that year that you changed everything?
Absolutely right. So I found myself kind of approaching 40. So I say pre midlife because I like to think I'm still pretty young, but certainly getting to the middle stage. And I was CEO running my own business, married with two kids, living in a beautiful house in central London. And I had sort of done all of the things that had been on my to do list, on my checklist for success. I had done them all. And I found myself at this position thinking I should have been coasting, but actually feeling kind of empty, unhappy, and like all of the things I had been chasing were not bringing me joy anymore. And that was pretty important to me. And I had really lost something. So I sort of set out on this quest to find it. Now, I don't know the changes that you decided to make at your midlife crisis, but mine was slightly unorthodox. I had this idea that I wanted to go and try all of the jobs that I never got a chance to do, but that I had always dreamt of doing when I was a kid. I had loved the theater, I had loved art, I was really into marine biology. So I sort of hatched this plan to take a year of internships, my what if year, which it ended up being called, and to explore what that actually meant for me in my future.
Well, that's interesting. Now, with the marine biology, did you go scuba diving? Was that the first thing you did?
So, okay, that was my dream. But I probably should have mentioned that my what if year was actually 2020. So,
Oh,
um, very quickly, my plans went out the window. So, sadly, I have not yet completed my marine biology internship, but I would still love to do that. Someone was just telling me the other day that actually not far from me here in Scotland is like a really fantastic marine science institute. So, I think I'll need like a really thick wetsuit, but maybe I could make it work.
was there any one particular thing that sparked this, or just deep contemplation over a period of time?
I think it was coming. I think it was building up slowly. But when I really reflected on it, it coincided with my kids getting big enough that I had some time back to myself. You know, I had spent so many years. I have twins who are now 11. They were 8 when I started on this journey. And, I had basically spent the first 8 years of their life just trying to make life work as a working mom. I was working, I was childcare, people were sick, you're taking people left, right, and center. I mean, it was a lot to get used to. It was a really big change, and young children are extremely demanding on your time. And then as my kids started to get a little bit older, plus, my 40th birthday was on the horizon, all of a sudden I had time to sit and think. And so I really think that's what sparked this. I think I had been so busy and kind of overwhelmed with life before then that maybe it had been happening for a while and I just hadn't noticed because, everything else was happening around me. And then as soon as I kind of had a moment to myself and to think, I was like, wait a minute, we got to do something about this.
What did your husband say?
At first, he was less than enthused, I would say. It was hard. We had started our business together. We had been working on it together. I had taken over as CEO. And we had a good thing going. So I think he was understandably hesitant about, one, me saying that this wasn't necessarily what I wanted anymore. And two, that I wanted to make this really big change in our life and that, it was going to need him to be there for the kids while I was off having these adventures and kind of exploring my path. But to his credit, he really just was incredibly supportive. Once he agreed, once he sort of like wrapped his head around the idea, he was my number one cheerleader. He was reading every cover letter, every resume I sent out. He was the one that was taking care of the kids while I was away and, coordinating the play dates and making sure they got to ballet lessons and soccer lessons and all those things that kids do. And, when the pandemic really did hit, and for a while it seemed like this plan was dead in the water, he was the one behind me saying, no, keep going. Don't stop. You really want to do this, and pushing me forward. So he has been really amazing throughout this whole thing.
Do you think you took it personally at first? I didn't know you had a company that you guys had started together.
I do think he took it personally.
Yeah.
I think it was hard for him. He had started the business with my support, but I was also kind of working, another job to pay the bills while he was really getting off the ground. I think he was really, really proud when we grew the business to the point where I could quit my other job and come work full time in the business. And then when I could become CEO, which also enabled him to do other things with his career, he started another 2 businesses. And I think he had felt so proud that he had built this for us, this job for me. And for me to say, I'm not happy, I don't want to do this anymore. It was really hard for him to take in, a way that I guess people that don't work together, couples that don't work together, don't have that same situation. But, he really did. He took some time to think about it. He does do that. Sometimes he needs some time to work it out. But then, he really got there, and he was just, he was like holding up the big number 1 foam finger in the background, like cheering me on.
Oh, well, I'm happy to hear that. Are you still involved in that company, or did you sell it, or what happened?
So I stepped back. So I decided, once I kind of finished my what if year of adventures, and I sort of came to the conclusion that I did need to change things. I didn't want to be doing what I was doing before anymore. I decided to step back. We had a woman in place who was our managing director, and she had kind of stepped in while I was doing my internships to fill my shoes. And so we decided the time was right. And so my husband and I stepped back. We still make up the board. I'm still chair of the organization, and I still do bits and pieces of consulting work. I get involved with clients who I've known for a long time, or who, I have a deep relationship with, or they're doing something like super interesting that I want to be a part of. But otherwise, I do not run the day-to-day anymore. She runs it, and she's a phenomenal CEO. And actually, it is difficult to transition away from a business that you founded, but it's been so rewarding, and it's going in directions we might not have dreamed. But I think it's really nice to see. It's like, I guess, when your kid, well, my kids aren't out of the house yet, but I guess it's like when your kid goes away to college, and you kind of see them becoming adults, and you feel really proud of what you did. Hopefully, I'm hoping that's where I get to when my kids become adults.
So aside from the book, My What If Year, what else do you do now to occupy your day?
I have my fingers in a lot of different pies. I like to say I have 6 jobs and no jobs at the same time, because none of them are full time. But the writing has been like a beautiful surprise that came out of this. I didn't go into the internship project intending to write a book, but I took really detailed notes. I did a lot of journaling throughout. And when I started to put it together in a narrative form, I found that I actually really loved the creative writing process, and it brought me so much joy. And that was kind of like where I ended up my year, that I needed to be chasing joy and things that were challenging and intellectually stimulating and getting me excited. So I'm still writing. I'm working on another book, a novel this time, which is a whole different skill set and really very difficult. But trying to make that happen, I still spend probably about a day a week, whether it's with clients or just meetings and checking in on the consulting business. And then my explorations, my internship adventures, two of them turned into paying gigs. So I still work with the art dealer who I interned with, and I have a very lofty title, which is like director of special projects, which really just means I do anything and everything. And it kind of feeds my need for being constantly thrown things that I've never done before or that I don't know anything about. And so it's really so much fun. And then the hotel in Scotland where you maybe are going to retire, they certainly did not ask me to come back and be an intern. I was a terrible waitress and even worse at checking people into their rooms. But they had read some of my writing. And so they approached me about helping them write a cookbook for their 50th anniversary, which I did last year. And I'm still involved with them, again, taking on little projects here and there. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I chase down things that I'm interested in. I still have half a mind to go do some internships. I might end up doing a few more this year. We'll see. But really the name of the game right now is pursuing things that I find, maybe they're not super comfortable. Maybe there's a high chance I'm going to fail at them. Ideally, they pay something that can, keep paying the bills, but that are just keeping me learning and growing all the time.
Did this bring you closer to your kids? Did you have more time to spend with them?
I think it coincided with lockdown, which was a time where we spent probably more time together than we would have liked because I was their teacher as well as their mom. And that was, something we all had to learn to deal with. And, I think one thing it really has done is that they see me as a person, not just as their mom. I think they think I did something really cool. And, they love to tell people, oh, my mom is an author and she's also an intern and she also writes a cookbook and she does all these things. And I think it's really helped them think about their own future in a way that's not so linear and not like, okay, well, we just have to study this one thing and go do this, one thing for the rest of our lives. So I think they're proud, and I think it has helped them understand me more as like a whole person, even though they still think that because I'm over 40, I'm like the oldest human alive. I was alive when the dinosaurs were alive or something like that.
That's funny. Well, the one quick thing, we got to wrap this up, but the one quick thing about, I think it's a whole different world than it was certainly when I was a kid, but even like my parents' generation, where like you said, you went to college, you studied one thing, or you didn't even go to college, and you got a trade, and that was it. Yeah. Now with the internet, you could do 20 different things all at the same time, and maybe one of them pans out that it ends up supporting you, right?
Exactly. It's really possible. And I think, that was my dad's journey. He studied accounting because his brothers studied accounting and he knew that he could get a job in accounting when he graduated. And then he worked as an accountant his entire career. And that was just always the path. But I think there are so many options now. And one unintended consequence of, our life on Zoom and all of the things that we had to do during the pandemic is that you can also be somewhere that's completely different from where you work. And so you can have a life that isn't necessarily, based on exactly what your job is. And you could try different things. You can meet different people from all over the world and explore different opportunities. So it's definitely like a new way of working. And I don't even know what it's going to be like when my kids come of age in the working world. I imagine it'll be even more different than it is now.
Well, to wrap up using your metaphor, life is no longer linear, it's spherical. And I think on that one, we're going to have to wind it down. Thank you so much for coming on. Do you have a website you want to give out?
Yes, I do. You can find me on alishafmiranda.com, and that's spelled ALISHA, or I'm on Instagram, same handle, at Alisha F. Miranda, and I would love to connect.
Okay, great. Well, Alicia, it was nice meeting you. Nice talking to you. Best of luck with the book. The book is out now and available?
The book is out as of February 7th, and it is available everywhere you buy books.
Okay, so next week. All right. Again, nice meeting you. Best of luck.
Thank you so much, Douglas. I appreciate it.